Welcome to FieldLink. I'm your host, Bill Smith. Have you ever wondered how a product can make its way from a concept to the actual product in a jug that could be applied on your field and your farm on your acre? In this episode, we visit with individuals from the Innovation Lab at the Helena Products Group. We're going to deep dive into how formulations impact how products actually work, and we'll talk a little bit about manufacturing and how that product can be impacted based on the way it is actually formulated. Plus, guest analyst Jody Lawrence joins us from Nashville with the latest in the commodity reports. Stay tuned for this episode of FieldLink. Be sure to join us at the Innovation Expo in Memphis, Tennessee on July 18th. You'll get the opportunity to tour our innovation laboratory to learn about formulation technologies and how these technologies are impacting your farm, your field, and your acre. Contact your Helena representative to learn more and register for July 18th in Memphis at the Helena Products Group. All right, and welcome back to FieldLink. I'm your host, Bill Smith, and today we have a very special treat. You know, the Innovation Expo here in Memphis is coming around the corner, going to be held here on July 18th, and one of those stops is going to be at our Innovation Laboratory here in Memphis at the Helena Products Group. And joining me today on this podcast is the manager for the Formulation and Technology Development area at Helena Products Group, and that's Trey Baker. Trey, welcome to FieldLink.
Hey, Bill, thanks.
Hey, man, it's great to have you here joining us today on the FieldLink podcast. We're super excited to have you join us as we talk about some of the innovations that you and your team have been working on for many, many years. So, Trey, tell us a little bit about you. Where's home? Where'd you grow up? And how long have you been at Helena?
Well, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. I went to school at Louisiana Tech, and I moved up to Helena, Arkansas back in the mid-'80s, and I started working for Helena at the mothership, the West Helena, Arkansas plant, and I started in January 1987. So I've been with Helena a little over 37 years, and I've spent the last 31 years here at HPG.
Wow. And during your 31 years journey here at HPG, you've been involved in the laboratory pretty much the whole time. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So my primary focus has always been in the formulation development side. So developing the formulations for Helena to bring to market.
So, man, over those 31 years, you have been kind of at the center point of helping develop some pretty leading brands that have impacted, agriculture across not just the United States, but around the globe.
Sure. It's been fascinating. It's one of the things I love about my career is just when you see something that you build, and we have successes, but we also have failures too when we're developing something, but
Sure.
That's how we learn. But to see something be successful and bring to commercialization and it adds to the bottom line of Helena, that makes you proud.
Yeah, that's a cool journey. And, Trey, I know you were very involved in products and coming to the market like Coron. I know you were super involved with that over the years. Definitely involved in products like Grounded. Those are some very pinnacle products that have a lot of history here. And we're super excited to have you on the team. Definitely have a lot of experience in formulation technologies. And now you've just recently taken on a new title here as manager of that whole space. Tell us a little bit about your team. What do you guys do at the laboratory, at the Innovation Lab at the Helena Products Group?
Sure. So, basically we get that concept, whether it comes from the grower, customer itself, it comes from the business unit, or it comes through brand, or just somewhere else internally. And we're taking that product concept and we're putting it on paper, basically, to see what it looks like. And then we'll move to the bench, and then we'll start building a formulation based on what has been requested as to what are the needs of it, what it needs to do. We decide at that point of what formulation technology would probably best fit in that space. And then we'll start looking at stability of that product over time. As I said before, we don't always get it right the first time, but
Sure.
sometimes we do. We evaluate those on a weekly basis. If we see that there's an issue, we go back to the bench and we'll try to make an improvement there. Sometimes by doing some little tweaks like that in the development stage, you find some other things that actually pop up and surprise you, and you develop something that you didn't expect. It's pretty cool.
It's amazing what you can learn when you have that open-minded concept of development. I mean, that's really what it is. And when you're getting ideas from the field, ideas from farmers, ideas from our sales reps, our product managers that are out there that are facing challenges on a day-to-day basis, they bring a lot of these concepts to you guys. Is that right?
Yes, it's what we always talk about is a grower may say, look, hey, I'm already buying 2 or 3 products. It'd be nice if I could just buy one that has everything, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not the kitchen sink, but for the most part of what he's trying to accomplish. And from the feasibility standpoint is we can do it, is whether or not we should do it, right?
Right.
In some cases. But we go into the lab and we have it in that mindset that we can accomplish this. And with my team, there's a lot of experience there. They've learned a lot about how to build formulations based on the criteria of the concept that comes from that grower to try to fix the problem that he's experiencing, or at least to minimize some of the issues that he's experiencing.
And when I think about some of the products you guys make, I think that's the difference. It's the formulation technologies, all of that, I guess, knowledge and how to formulate a product is really what separates, a Helena product from some of the other products on the market today.
Absolutely. When we're looking at it from the development stage, is we're not just thinking about what the targets are, but also the other things that come along with it. Improved compatibility, better efficacy, better plant vigor, more early emergence. Mm-hmm. Anything that we can do to help get that plant off to a healthier, start is always going to be a bonus for the grower.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you have the grower in mind, and that's, again, going back to the very beginning, that's where most of the concepts come from, is at the farm gate, and they work their way to your laboratory, where you and your colleagues get to work on those concepts.
Yes, and like I said before, is where the rubber meets the road for us is to see the success in the commercialization of a concept that we developed in the lab. It makes us proud, to say, hey,
sure,
that we were at least a part of that, so that we could bring something to the farmer that would return on investment for him, for his land, but at the same time, it's adding a benefit to Helena as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really great approach, and it's not just about, putting more dollars in our pocket as an organization, but it's actually putting more dollars in the grower's pocket and taking that opportunity to help feed the mouths around the globe.
Correct. And the other thing, too, is what I mean is that the benefit that Helena gets from the relationship with that grower, mm-hmm. The confidence is saying that when I have Helena I'm a Helena customer, that I can trust that what they say and what they bring to the table is meaningful.
That's a great story there. Also joining us in the podcast studio today is Fix. Fix, I don't even want to try to pronounce your real name, so can you pronounce it for us?
Sure. Figaveni.
Fix, I'm going to refer to you, Fix. Fix is our technology and management manager for manufacturing. Fix, you've been with Helena a while. Tell us about your journey. Where's home for you?
Thanks, Bill. Home for me is Swaziland,
okay,
which is now called Eswatini. It's a small, tiny country in the southern part of Africa. I came to the United States in 2001, went for school up in Indiana. Started in Vincent's University and later on went to Purdue University and majored in environmental science. I had to go back to Africa for a year because when my visa expired, you have to follow all the immigration ways to come back properly so I can, start all over with my career. And then as I started over someday, I was just looking for a job and I saw this beautiful logo saying Helena. Like, had no idea what it was, but took a chance. And little did I know how big the company was. And from the moment I got in, that was it. So I joined Helena in Huntington, Indiana, as a quality assurance technician. That's right.
Quality.
Yeah. And then in about 18 months, moved down to Memphis as a chemist in the tech support department. And then probably 2017 transitioned into the formulation development, which is actually what I really wanted to do from the moment I came down here. So it was pretty nice to finally have that opportunity. And ever since then, I've been working on formulation development, but mostly on the crop production side. Of course, I've dealt a little bit with crop protection, but most of my work has been on crop production. And that spilled over to manufacturing support, which is kind of where I had started originally. So kind of a full circle right there.
So you kind of have the best of both worlds today in your new role.
No, I believe so, yeah.
Formulation, coming up with these new concepts and novel ideas, but also ensuring that the products that you guys do develop are being manufactured in the proper manner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess, so part of your role is overseeing standard operating procedures at multiple plants, not just in the United States, but around the globe. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Obviously, we have our HII family, and we have our HAE, and then we have Marubeni. So all of those work together in terms of us making sure that whatever we produce is actually good for all three.
Right.
So obviously, as you know, there are some topics we can't go into with regard to that, for obvious reasons. But the general idea is that each and every one of these locations, we have to treat them, special. Right. We have to make sure that they have everything they need, from standard operating procedures to even any type of manufacturing support they might need. But it doesn't only just end there. As much as we develop these formulas in the lab, what ends up happening is we also learn from them, because we can build a formula here in our labs on a beaker, but they build that formulation all scaled up into a 3,000, 4,000 gallon tank. So we also get to learn from them, their equipment. And when we develop, as we move forward, we develop in mind of what each and every one of our locations have. So we don't just focus on us making the product the right way. We also have to keep in mind that, is it going to be useful for everybody? Is it going to be a better process for everybody? Will everybody be able to achieve the specifications that we've developed for this particular product? So it's not just a one-way street when you start putting in, or rather including manufacturing support. It goes both ways. We both teach each other, and we both learn from each other.
Well, I think that's a really good point, Vix, because you can create, and Trey, I'm sure you could chime in here, you guys can create some awesome products on the bench in the lab. Mm-hmm. But when you take it out to a manufacturing site, as you mentioned, going from a beaker to a 3,000 gallon tank and managing, Mother Nature and weather and all of these impacting things can change things a little bit. So,
absolutely.
So that's why it's really important to have a master like you of manufacturing, understanding how things work from a bigger perspective.
Absolutely. That is correct. We, one of the things that I admire most about what we do is the concept of, continuous improvement. And, that story about that extra 1% that you do every day can take you into, greater heights by the time the year ends. So when you have that in mind, you spend more time teaching, but also listening. Because when you build a product, you want whoever you're building it for to also have some kind of an input. They'll tell you what they like. They'll tell you what they don't like.
Right.
And we bring that back into the lab and see if we can help them to the point where they have the product the way they like it. And we do that a lot. And it works best because all it takes is for instance, one location. I'll make an example, Port Lavaca, Texas. They will come up and say, I have an issue, with this particular raw material.
Right.
I'll bring that back. I'm not going to get to a point where I say, well, nobody else is complaining. So I'll bring it back to the lab. I'll work on it on behalf of that particular location. And if it does a good job or better, so kind of similar or better, if that's the case, then we'll go ahead and take that story back to all our formulators.
Sure.
And be like, hey guys, if you're fine with how you've been doing it, carry on. But if you would like to improve it based off of what we found for Port Lavaca, here's another option. And before you know it, it's adopted. And that's what I love the most about my job, because even when you think you got it, somebody will come up with a different idea and like, have you tried this?
So you're always evolving.
Absolutely.
Always innovating.
Absolutely. It never ends.
Awesome. That's great. Trey, talk to us a little bit, for decades, and you've been around a few decades. For decades, we've been innovating products and bringing products to the market. Can you share with our listeners just kind of the size and scope here at HPG? How many products do you typically screen in a year, and how has that evolved over time?
That's a good question, Bill. I'd probably say on the average in the last decade alone, we've looked at anywhere from 50 to 100 concepts per year. So we're averaging somewhere in the 70 to 80 range. And, not all of those get tested.
Sure.
Great concept ideas, but for the most part, more than 50% of those are probably being tested, if not 75% of that. And, they're taking those in the efficacy trials, vital screens, the whole 9 yards, taking it all the way to yield. And then we're looking at multiple years, different soil types, different cropping systems to see how robust that formulation is. And when you're looking at those concepts, probably 35% of those will probably move forward into multiple years of testing. The others, we may have to go back to the drawing board, like I said earlier, to try to improve some type of process there to make it work better based on the data that comes back. So when you look at it from the concept standpoint of all the testing, somewhere in the 5 to 10 products per year are getting launched from all of that. And so when you're looking at product launches that are being made, like the ones that are coming up this fall, those were probably started in 2020, 2021. So It's not like we test 1 year and we're done.
No.
And so you can see concepts that are being tested for multiple years before they ever go to commercialization.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point to stress to our listeners, that a concept will come forward. Y'all might work on that in the bench in the chemistry lab for maybe a whole year or more. But then it goes to the next group, the R&D group, and you guys are very much engaged with research and development as well. But that's, to your point, that's when it's going to the field. That's when it's going across the country for multiple third-party trials to see if it can stand the test that we think it can based on what you all do in the lab.
Absolutely. There's thousands of trials, and you're looking at, like we said earlier, is just because it goes out to be tested, the first year's data may not be favorable to the point where, we hit a home run.
Right.
And we may have to go back to the bench, and that's another year of going back to the bench and trying to improve on that idea. And then that's another year of testing that gets put back, So you can see how that process works for us and an R&D group.
I think that's really important for our listeners to know that we're, not just coming up with a concept and trying to kick out a product. We're trying to vet it out too. We're trying to ensure our customers, our growers, that the value will be there and it'll be able to replicate itself year in and year out, correct?
Sure. I mean, we're not just, like I said, one and done. We got to make sure that the formulations, when they're testing, that we've got replicated data, shows that it improves on all the aspects of what we're trying to obtain. And then after multiple years, different soil types, different cropping systems, that's going to determine what the verbiage is going to be on that label, right, when we go to commercialization.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Fix, from your perspective, you've got colleagues that are in the industry, and you've been around the world. You're from around the world. What kind of makes, in your opinion, a Helena product different from others that are out there in the marketplace? Why are we different?
It's a good question. I'd say care for the people that actually give it out there in terms of us, the ones that supply it. I say the level of care, regardless of which department, is just amazing. From brand to R&D to the lab to tech support, registration. We give our all. You can tell that it's more like our life depends on it. Well, literally does.
Literally does, yeah, that's right.
But what I'm saying is we really, really own our products. We take pride in our products. We get disappointed when something doesn't go right. We get excited when something goes great. So when we, the people that give it out there to our other people in terms of customers, if we care for it that much, I believe that everything and anything that has to do with those products is just enough to excite everybody else, because they feel like they can sense the genuineness into what we sell, into what we provide, into what we fix if there's any problem. So that is my take, honestly.
I think that is an awesome response to a question, and that really does separate, a Helena product from maybe others that are on the marketplace, and it kind of comes back to the people, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And caring.
Absolutely.
Caring, being, that's super important. Guys, coming up here, we'll be in Memphis at the Innovation Expo, and growers are going to have the opportunity to come in and visit you at your laboratory. Trey, what can customers expect when they walk in your lab? What are they going to learn?
Well, we want to educate them on our concepts that we get. We've been talking this whole time here is how much energy we put into developing a formulation that's going to be successful for them. We want to make sure that it's going to be reproducible results. How we build what we build into it is going to be sustainable. It's going to work for them time and time again.
Sure.
Don't ever have to worry about that. And, like what we talked about, we look at improved compatibility. We want to make sure it's efficacious. We want to make sure that it's safe. We try to check the box on many categories when we're developing something, not just in the mindset of just what does it need to do, from what is it, how is it supposed to work. It's got to be user friendly. Sure. Ease of use is always a plus, and does it mix well with others? That's very important, because growers are going to put a lot of different things in the spray tank, because they're going to make one trip across that field, right?
That's right.
And we got to make it easier for them to use, better for them to use.
So when they come into the lab, Fix, what do you want to share? What are you looking forward to sharing with some of those farmers, ranchers that might be coming into Memphis here in another week or so?
Really, for me, when I have a guest in the lab, the most important thing is to leave them, or rather when they leave, I want to see them in awe. I want to see them, joyful. I want to see them curious. And sometimes it's not about what we share. It's about asking them what they would like to know about our products, especially, customers.
Right.
We invite them to ask us questions. We can tell our story every day. We can practice every day. We can say whatever we've said 1,000 times. But sometimes you just want to hear what they have to say.
Right.
And what I admire is that almost every single time, I'm not going to say 100% because you never know,
right,
but almost every single time a question is thrown at us in our lab, if I have no answer for it, I know exactly who does. I call Trey. I call Amanda. I call any of our team members and say, hey, do you mind come on over here and answering this question? And by the time the customer leaves, they got the question they want. So they got the answer they wanted. And that for me is bigger than just me standing and sharing information, because I'd like for them to engage, because they're most likely to remember what they asked about. than what I just told them about. So that's the biggest thing for me, is to encourage them to ask questions.
Yeah, I can't agree. Oh, I agree so much more with you on that one. That the Innovation Expo is like that. Yes, we've got some things we want to highlight, some new products, some new technologies, some new concepts and ideas, but it's a two-way street. We really want those customers to come in and talk to us, share their challenges, share their ideas, because Trey Baker, like you mentioned on our opening, our best ideas come from the field.
They absolutely do.
We might not have the answer today, but you and Fix and Amanda and the rest of the team are going to go to work to try to find that answer. Awesome. So I also understand you're going to have some demonstrations taking place in the lab when customers come into the expo here.
Yes.
So they're going to have the opportunity to see how some products like Grounded work, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a real good hands-on visual to see how some of these innovative products that, have been around a while but are still providing value to the grower are very important for a grower's farm today. So, guys, I want to thank you both for joining me here today on the FieldLink Podcast, sharing a little bit more what you do at the Innovation Lab here at the Helena Products Group, and highlighting some of the things that can be seen at this year's Innovation Expo 24, held on July 18th. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me here on FieldLink.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Welcome back to FieldLink. I'm your host, Bill Smith, and joining us from Nashville is Jody Lawrence. Jody, welcome to FieldLink.
Thank you, Bill. It's good to be back. And now that we're past the 4th of July holiday, it kind of feels like the doldrums of the growing season and the doldrums of we won't have another 3-day weekend until we get to Labor Day. So we're kind of in the hard part of summer right now, where the heat picks up and the days start to drag by a little.
Yeah, it's funny, Jody, how we've really transitioned in time. And those of you that are in the commodity markets know this. As we've added more and more holidays in the middle of the week, it really changes things up a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, the floating Juneteenth, and then celebrating the 4th where it falls in the calendar, you end up with, like we did this year, in between Memorial Day going to the 4th of July, you have 3 or 4 weeks that are chopped up, and you trade 2 days, and then you're closed, and you're on or off, and it's an inconsistent way to trade for sure. I know the markets would rather see 3-day weekends, like when President's Day, they just assigned it to that Monday. But I think this is the schedule that we're going to have for quite a while, unfortunately, and it's probably more of a negative than it is a positive for our markets.
Yeah, it definitely changes the game, especially to veteran traders. And, I guess it's something, as you mentioned, Jody, we're all going to have to kind of get used to for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the grain markets, Jody. It's, not a whole lot of fun stuff to talk about this time of year, but what are we learning out in the grain markets today?
Well, I'm going to put a positive spin on this, because the way things happen, everything else, you look at the big world, everything is kind of a result of something else. And you're and in the ag world this time of year, when you look at prices falling, which they certainly have been because the crops are both rated 68% good to excellent, there has been some inconsistency. Certainly, we still feel for everybody in the Northern Corn Belt, Iowa, North, South Dakota, Minnesota, that saw the flooding rains. But in the big picture, the crop is really doing well. And when you see prices falling, and today we made another round of new contract lows for December corn, you get frustrated that when you do your job well in agriculture, you get punished for it. But let's talk about doing your job well, because everybody believes that the potential of this crop is record. is trend lined at 181 and 52. And both of those, certainly the corn at 181 would beat last year's 177.8. So that would be a significant improvement and jump over a new bushel per acre yield record. That we have to look at the positives of this is where our industry has moved to through the improved genetics, through the improved technology, everything across the board. And you're sitting at Helena Products Group, and they've had a huge play in all of everything. You go back to Johnny Roberts through all the decades and all the brilliant people that are working there now, the new products that are coaxing more yield out of every acre. That when everybody works together and you get rain and pretty decent weather, we have overcome a lot of challenges that 20 years ago we certainly could, we would be very concerned about a lot of the things that have happened. But there's such tremendous upside potential every year if we get a Goldilocks season, which a lot of people argue that it hasn't been, but where prices are, it certainly appears that they're trying to price that in. At some point, you have to look past that, congratulate everybody in it, and give everybody a good pat on the back, because from all the new practices, all of the great stewardship and all the hard work that every operation and every family and every farmer puts in to get these huge yields, it's a huge accomplishment that can't be overlooked, regardless of what prices are doing and how poor me we want to feel for ourselves in the industry.
Yeah, Jody, you bring up really great points there. We've really come a long way in the industry, overcoming a lot of challenges that, historically have been huge for agriculture. But gosh, we continue to, get better through, as you mentioned, technology and different applications and methods and that sort of thing. We've lost about 1 million acres. If you look at the headlines, about 1 million acres, as you mentioned, up in Iowa and Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska. 15 years ago, that would have been headline news across the globe and really would have shaken the markets. But you step back today, that's about 1%. And again, if you're in that area, that's really rough. But again, 1% of the market, and it's just not moving these markets a whole lot, is it?
Yeah, because you look at it, even at a record 1 million acres of corn, 180 million bushels and a 15 billion bushel plus crop. When you start talking about a 2.1, 2.2 billion carryover, is just not as significant as it used to be. And it is. It's you hate to talk about it because it's at the expense of some great places that Helena has locations that we go and speak and visit and have good friends there. But it's just as the yields continue to improve and trend line continues to go up year after year and decade after decade, these previous hurdles are just not becoming the challenges that they used to be.
Jody, the theme here, I think, on this podcast is it's all about change. And, as we talked about on our opening comment, we talked about the changes in calendar dates and grain markets and when the markets open and that sort of thing. Another thing that has really changed over the last 10 to 15 years is the impact that South America has really changed the way we look at markets and how market trends have shifted. Summer markets are much different today based on some of the influence in South America. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's a great point, and it just shows the ever-evolving nature of the world, ag markets, prices, and who's growing what, where, and when. And when you look at the influence of all the Southern Hemisphere markets, Australia with wheat, but really more directly with Brazil and Argentina with corn and beans, that we are starting to see in their average to above average production years that the U.S., unless we have, and we have not since South America production's really expanded, we've not had a 2012 issue that really scared everybody to death that we saw, some serious yield loss. We've seen 3 or 4 bushels here and there, and we've had nice rallies, and we've had positive things happen price-wise that we were coming out of a hole to get these rallies. And we're starting to see more, June and July lows than we ever did. And I sound like my great grandfather again, back before the turn of the century, just simply because if you look at the percentage of who is producing around the world and how, as a, the big picture, that South America's production is as important, if not, a little bit more, because it kind of creates the extra gravy that the extra world stocks has, that if they're coming off big yields like they have this year, despite their challenges, they're coming off big yields because of extra acres. But it does give the United States crop and how the market treats the United States growing season a much bigger cushion and not nearly as much panic when we do have things like the hail damage that came through last night that certainly would have positively affected the markets, or the flooding, just any number of those things. So the South American contribution to world production is something that we are starting to definitely see an impact, that your fathers and grandfathers, well, we know that the prices will be low during harvest in September, October. We're starting to see those during South America's harvest and the tail end when they're emptying their bins. So it's something we have to pay attention to. And, unfortunately, sometimes it's just very hard for a U.S. farmer to say, okay, well, I need to start selling my crop in April and May before South America's harvest pressure hits the market, when it's possibly not even in the ground, much less out of the ground. And these are the types of just tough decisions as markets change that you do have to be lighter on your feet and less entrenched in this is the way we've always done it, to look at kind of the new and evolving way these markets treat world production.
And Jody, one of the things that's really unique is whether good times, bad times, you still have to have the bushels in order to market the bushels. And now's a great time for growers across the country to sit down with their Helena rep, as we kind of get into that middle of the season for most producers, and look at strategies to just finish off this yield, whether it's incorporating corn metra or even full scale into their operation to maximize their seed counts, their bean counts, those pod buster type products that can help absolutely fill their wagons come fall.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be something where those extra bushels end up being kind of a means to an end. While nobody's going to be happy at the prices we're selling it at, if you do have the extra bushels, a 10% loss in price can be offset by a 4 or 5% increase in yield, or even a little bit smaller. So there are always going to be trade-offs here, and we just have to watch the industry evolve in front of us, because we want everybody out, back here next year being able to do it. And I think a little bit what we're going to see this year, it does go back to the interest rates, which hopefully begin to come down. I saw some information about potentially a September rate cut, but a lot of headwinds right now, but they're headwinds because everybody's doing a fantastic job.
Well, folks, we want to encourage all of you to sit down with Jody here on July 18th here in Memphis at the Innovation Expo. Jody will be joined by Sean Haney with Real Ag Radio out of Canada, and Chip Flory with AgriTalk based out of the Farm Journal Group. Going to be here in Memphis at the Innovation Expo. Be sure to talk to your Helena representative to reserve your spot to come and listen to Jody and several other individuals across the country to learn more about products, but also about the grain markets and how we can maximize your profits this year. Jody, thanks again for joining us here on this episode of FieldLink.
Thank you, Bill. Everybody have a good week.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of FieldLink. Be sure to register for the Innovation Expo in Memphis, Tennessee on July 18th. Contact your Helena representative to learn more.